Can you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm James Shnyder, Director of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem.
What has Mr. Goldman done for Israel? How has this been significant?
You have to know that my experience in Israel is with the Israel Museum. And I know Richard Goldman because of his long-standing connection to the museum through his and his late wife Rhoda's connections with Teddy Kollek.
Nice. How has his effort been acknowledged, sorry for my English, in Israel?
Well, again, I would speak about Jerusalem and about the museum. Richard and Rhoda were longtime supporters of the museum, as was Rhoda's family. And being in Jerusalem and here on the landscape of our museum, I'm always aware of Richard and Rhoda's work, and most particularly because of the beautiful Tayelet of the Haas Promenade, which gives such a wonderful sense of the power and strength of the landscape of Jerusalem.
Saw it yesterday. I shot it yesterday. What impact has his work had there?
I would say that his feeling for Jerusalem, and again also because of his long-standing relationship with Teddy Kollek, whose powerful feeling, not just for Jerusalem as it was, but for a vision of Jerusalem as it might be, really speaks most to what his commitment here was about.
When did you first meet Mr. Goldman?
I think I first met Richard when I became director of the museum. Actually, I think I met one of his kids. I met Doug before I met Richard. I subsequently met Susie, and I met Richard as part of my effort to meet those who'd been involved with the museum and with Teddy Kollek, who was our founder, for a very long time. And I had the pleasure to meet Richard in San Francisco by going to visit with him.
What is your first impression of Mr. Goldman? First, and then has that changed over the years, the impression?
You know, it's fascinating. My first impression of Richard was that he was kind, that he was serious, and that he was thoughtful. And my feeling and my view have been the same since that time. In a funny way, my first meeting with Richard was occasioned by a work of art which had been gifted by Rhoda's family to the museum. And I think it was the start of Rhoda's and Richard's connection with us. And when I met him, we were beginning an initiative which was our Director Circle, which was meant to be a kind of stabilizing annual fundraising effort that would bring security to the financial operations of the museum. And Richard was deeply impressed by that as an aspiration, and he was a participant in that effort for a number of years. And every year he would say to me, I want to know that this effort is actually achieving the stability that you hope it will provide. And indeed over time it did, and indeed he enjoyed that, and it was satisfying to him. But interestingly, something that developed more recently is actually the basis for what I would say is not only humorous but touching about Richard. After the passing of Teddy Kollek a number of years ago, Richard called me to say that he wanted to commission for the museum a lifelike statue of Teddy that we could put on the uppermost plaza of the museum. And this, of course, was a touching thought. And my immediate response was that Teddy wouldn't want to see his own image on the uppermost plaza, but that it would be very nice to commission a sculpture that would reflect the power of Teddy's vision for the museum and its landscape. And Richard didn't say no. In fact, Richard said, what do you have in mind? And I told him that I could actually think of a sculptor who might be able to capture the essence of Teddy's vision for our campus, and that it would be very interesting to start a dialogue with him. Richard was circumspect, which I think is actually one of his great attributes, and he said, well, why don't you look into it and keep me apprised? And in fact, several years later, we are awaiting the arrival in just a month's time of a very important sculptural commission, a site-specific commission for the highest place on our campus, which will be done by Anish Kapoor, who is perhaps one of the world's most recognized sculptors at the moment, and which is really meant to capture the spirit of Teddy's vision for the power of the site and setting of the museum, and for the importance of its place in Jerusalem. And in a way, nothing could be a more touching statement of Richard's enthusiasm for, respect for, and interest in connecting his experience here with Teddy and the landscape of Jerusalem, and his interest in an understanding of art and why art is important here. And it's a nice story.